What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, the first game of today's playoff action saw the Washington Wizards playing the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, the Sixers are the favorite team in this series, and let's not lose sight of that. Despite any rhetoric that you see tomorrow, especially coming from ESPN, especially coming from First Take, and especially coming from that imbecile Stephen A. Smith, okay? And I will counter any dumb shit that he has to say tomorrow. All right, but for the most part, this was a competitive game, nip and tuck. Toward the end, Philly just showed that they just had more weapons. Okay, Philly had more weapons. Tobias Harris had a tremendous game, 37.6 rebounds, 2 assists. And it was just too much for Washington to overcome. If it wasn't for Tobias Harris having such a great game, Washington might have been able to sneak one out. But like I said, Philly just has too many weapons. Danny Green uh, had 11 points. Joel Embiid, 30 points. Didn't dominate the boards, but he had 30 points. Ben Simmons did dominate the boards. He had 6 points, 15 rebounds, and 15 assists. Seth Curry had 15 points, brother of Steph, who's not in the playoffs. Excuse me. Dwight Howard, in 18 minutes of action, had 7 points and 4 rebounds. Shakes Milton had 5 points, and Hill had 11 points in 18 minutes of action. Now, for the Wizards, Westbrook had 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 14 assists. He did outscore Ben Simmons, but I think Westbrook needed a little bit more offensive output. I said, I think I was on Tickets live stream one day earlier this week, and I said that I thought Washington was capable of beating Philly, but in order for them to beat Philly, Washington would have to control the pace. They really have to push the pace. They did that today. And I thought Russell would have to average something around 23 in the series, something around there, and be a little bit more efficient than he normally is. Russell's not a guy that's going to shoot 50% from the floor, 45% from three. That's just not, and that's not his game. If you could get him to shoot somewhere around 45%, anything up above that is just gravy. But if he can just get to 45%, shoot 33% from three, don't shoot an abundance of them. One or two, three a game, that's fine. Make his foul shots, keep the turnovers down. Washington would have a chance. But this is the thing. Unlike the imbecile, the balding buffoon, okay, you know what I'm saying? The 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 hair loss stricken hoodlum that's on ESPN First Take, okay? The follically challenged fool that spits all of that stupid venom, okay? The reality is, this isn't just Russell's team. This was Bradley Beal's team, okay? Bradley Beal, the same guy that put up 34 points a game last year, if I'm not mistaken. No, 30 points, excuse me. 30 points a game last year, okay? Bradley Beal at one point earlier this year was averaging 34 points a game. Now all of a sudden it's like it's Russell Westbrook and the Westbrook Years or something. Like he's Michael Jordan. He's playing with a bunch of bums. Um, Last I checked, Bradley Beal is an All Star, right? Okay, wasn't one last year. He won this year. Um, I think that going into the season, a lot of people, including myself, thought Westbrook was kind of done as an All Star level, superstar level player. Now all of a sudden it's like Westbrook is supposed to put teams on his back and do things that we didn't even expect Michael Jordan to do. And that is just easily knock off a first seed. Jordan, despite all of his efforts, scoring 49 and 63 and 86, 50 and 40 and 87, you know what I'm saying? Even his rookie year, you know what I'm saying? He couldn't knock off the first seed, Milwaukee Bucks, and later Larry Bird's Boston Celtics. So why do people expect Russell to be able to do things that even Jordan couldn't do, or even the great Kobe Bryant wouldn't be able to do? The seventh seeded Lakers couldn't knock off the second seeded Phoenix Suns in 2006. But Russell Westbrook, who everybody says can't shoot, he's supposed to be expected to put this team on his back and knock off the Philadelphia 76ers. As if we constantly see ACs knock out first seeds. This is the foolishness that they put out there. You know what I'm saying? But I'm calling the bullshit out. And it's not about, I don't expect Russ to be a superstar. It's about being real fucking listed. Okay? If the Lakers from 2 years ago were in the playoffs, if they didn't make the playoffs, right? That team without AD, and they played the first seed, who I think were the Warriors. Does anybody realistically expect the Lakers to beat them in a series? No. I don't care if they had LeBron James. There's some things that you got to be realistic about. Okay? What I know is this. I'm gonna get off this my soapbox and go back into the game. Whatever happened between Russell Westbrook, his wife, and her calling out Stephen A. Smith, it got under his skin, and he has a personal vendetta against Russ, and he's been proving it to me because of what he's been saying out of his mouth. Okay, I'm gonna keep hitting this message until you see what I'm talking about. And he's gonna prove that I'm correct tomorrow. I guarantee you, he's gonna prove that I'm correct. First of all, on the one end, he says that Russell Westbrook, you should expect more from him than say Chris Paul because he's supremely athletic. But then he says that Russell Westbrook needs a jump shot to compete in today's NBA. Pick a narrative, please. Okay? Pick one. He says that Russell Westbrook is going to be a failure because he's not going to get past Philly. But then he says anybody knows you're not going to get past Philly because you're the eighth seed. And they're the first seed, and they're just a better team. So really, he's being arrogant and haughty and an asshole. I'm going to be a bigger asshole. Okay? I'm going to be an even bigger asshole. You male pattern baldness marauder, you. You're a fraud. You don't watch the games. You harp about your basketball acumen, but you constantly have been exposed for not really. People can tell that you don't really watch any of these games. Okay, um, you're spiteful. You got the legendary Clarence Gaines fired because he hurt your feelings. You're a spiteful human being, a sad, pathetic, lonely person, and nobody fucking likes you. And you constantly go after black men who are idealistic and stand behind their people. People who champion causes like Kyrie, Russell Westbrook, Colin Kaepernick. You know what I'm saying? He tends to go after these types of men. But this is a guy that takes pictures with Sheriff Clark and is on conservative radio talk show hosts who, harp white supremacy talking points. He takes pictures with those guys, but shit on those other ones. Some of you guys better open your eyes as to some of these guys' agendas. But I'm off that now. Going back to the game. Okay. Um, I'm fair, and Russell Westbrook turned the ball over too much toward the end of the game. Okay. It wasn't just him. Okay. Bradley Beal turned the ball over a lot too. but Russell has to keep the turnovers down. He has to execute down the stretch, get others involved. Um, I think he needs the Wizards need. Scott Brooks is in this as well. Um, they got to pulverize Philly in transition. They got to really push the pace. Um, to me, the Wizards need to push the pace faster. Like, I mean, fucking maybe goddamn 80s Denver Nuggets type shit if they can. Um, try to get it more of a 130, 140 type game. I know it's difficult to say to do something like that in the playoffs against the first seed, but you know, anything that can lead to easy transition buckets, that's when Russell Westbrook is more dangerous offensively. Russ is not a great half court scorer. He's not a great outside shooter. He used to be more to me more consistent mid range, but now he's a little bit more inconsistent. Um, but I think Russ had a one thing I've noticed about Russ now as he's getting a little bit older. It's just me from watching him this year. He does, for the most part, seem to be more controlled than the Russell Westbrook of the last couple of years. Um, the fact that he's slowing down athletically just a little bit, just a twinge. Um, I think some of the criticism that some people have had toward him, he has paid attention to it, and I think for the most part, he does play a more controlled game than he once did. He's still not perfect. He still sometimes turns the ball over when you don't want him to. But that's the thing, you know what I'm saying? Teams trap him, and sometimes that happens. Turnovers happen, especially in the fact when you consider this is a faster paced league. There's more possessions, so there's going to be more turnovers. Players are going to turn the ball over more. Embiid had 5 turnovers, but nobody's going to point that out. You know what I'm saying? I think Bradley Beal has 6 turnovers or something like that, but nobody's going to point that out. But they're going to point out that Russ had 6 turnovers and it's Russ' fault that they lost the game. You know what I'm saying? So that just comes with the territory to a certain extent. But I don't. But what I don't like is when guys in the media have their personal agendas towards certain players because they don't like them. You know what I'm saying? Uh, Kyrie Irving won't talk to me, so I'm going to denigrate him. You know what I'm saying? Russell Westbrook uh, doesn't have a great relationship with the media, so they're going to denigrate him. Colin Kaepernick doesn't talk much to guys. He wasn't the most vocal guy. He's like a nice guy, but he's not really the most vocal and perhaps in their eyes, friendly with the media. So they killed him in a lot of ways, right? Um, remember Stephen A. Smith said something about, well, how can you be an activist and not vote? Maybe because the Democratic Party and the Republican parties are full of shit. Okay, I'm very politically active and very politically aware, and I never advocate for anybody to vote for any of these fucking parties. You know what I'm saying? So nobody has to vote for any. Like my boy LB says, look, just because someone asks you out on a date, that doesn't mean that if just because they ask you, you gotta accept, right? So at the end of the day, that's all I gotta say. Tell me what you guys think, and fuck Stephen A. Smith.